Hey, hey, my incredible fishing family. It's your buddy, the fishing guru, back with another crucial forecast to help you land that trophy catch. Get ready, because we're diving deep into the fishing conditions for our stunning New Zealand waters, looking ahead from the 27th of October to the 2nd of November 2025. This week, friends, is shaping up to be a classic Kiwi spring roller coaster with a mix of everything that keeps us on our toes, from rapidly changing weather to a moon that's playing its own subtle game. I've crunched all the numbers, scrolled through countless weather models, and tapped into years of experience to bring you the most actionable advice. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly why this particular week offers some truly unique opportunities. Yes, even amidst the spring capriciousness. We're going to uncover some real gems about fish behavior and how to capitalize on those fleeting moments of brilliance out on the water. Trust me, you don't want to miss the specific tips I've got for navigating these varied conditions. Let's make some memories this week. All right, my fellow anglers, let's talk about the stars of our show this week. Given it's late spring here in New Zealand, the activity is really picking up for our iconic brown trout and rainbow trout in the freshwater systems. And in the saltwater, we're seeing increased movement from snapper and those aggressive kingfish and kahawai meat. First up, our magnificent trout, brown and rainbow. Where to look for them? Friends, with the water temperatures slowly rising, our trout are shaking off the winter sluggishness and becoming much more active. You'll want to focus your efforts around the transitional areas in rivers and lakes. Think the edges of riffles where the faster water meets slower pools, and the tailouts of deeper runs. These are prime feeding grounds where nymphs are being dislodged and washed downstream. In lakes, look for them cruising along the drop-offs and the edges of weed beds, especially during periods of stable weather. As the week progresses and water warms, don't be afraid to target shallower areas, particularly where there's good cover, like submerged logs or overhanging vegetation. Rivers flowing out of our big lakes, such as the KLYOVA or the Waiau, are always a good bet this time of year due to consistent flows and abundant food sources. What to use? For the early part of the week, especially with cooler mornings and potential for higher flows, nymphing is going to be your bread and butter. My advice? Go for slightly larger nymph patterns, think size 12 and 14. Patterns like tungsten beaded hair and coppers, pheasant tail nymphs, or some flashier come eat me. Style flies with rubber legs are excellent choices to get down deep where the fish are holding. Don't be afraid to add some extra weight with split shot or deep soft weights to ensure your flies are in the feeding zone. As the days warm up, keep an eye out for early season mayfly hatches, which can be short but intense. Have some small general purpose dry flies ready, like a parachute Adams or a small caddis imitation, for those moments when trout start rising. If you're into streamer fishing, especially on those slightly colder or overcast days, a weighted streamer like a Mr. Glister or Sex Dungeon ripped aggressively through deeper runs can trigger a truly explosive strike from an otherwise lethargic fish. Remember, trout are often less selective this early in the season, so don't be afraid to experiment a little. Now, let's head to the saltwater for our hard fighting snapper. Where to look for them? As spring progresses and inshore water temperatures creep up, snapper will be moving into shallower, warmer waters to feed. Look for them around rocky reefs, kelp beds, and sandy channels near structure, especially at depths of 5 to 20 meters. Estuaries and harbor entrances can also be productive as they follow baitfish. Early mornings and late evenings, or during incoming tides, are often the best times to find them feeding actively. What to use? Soft plastics are incredibly effective for snapper. Use a jig head ranging from 1/4 to 1 ounce, depending on depth and current, with a 5 to 7 inch grub or jerk shad in natural colors like pilchard or natural baitfish. Slow retrieves with subtle lifts and drops work wonders. Bait fishing with fresh pilchards, squid, or mackerel on a running sinker rig is also a classic and reliable method. For lure enthusiasts, smaller slow-pitch jigs or even a well-presented soft bait can entice a bite. Remember to keep your lines light and your drag smooth. Snapper can pull hard. And for the thrill seekers, the mighty Kingfish and kahawai. Where to look for them? Kingfish, those powerful green machines, love structure. Look for them around offshore reefs, pinnacles, channel markers, and buoy lines. They're often found patrolling bait schools, so keep an eye out for bird activity. Kahawai, New Zealand's poor man's tuna, are often found in large schools, especially around headlands, river mouths, and harbour entrances where baitfish congregate. They are highly migratory and often visible surface feeding. What to use? For kingfish, live baits like mackerel or kahawai are king, fished either unweighted or with a balloon. Topwater lures, such as stickbaits and poppers, can provide explosive surface strikes, especially around dawn and dusk. Jigging with heavy metal jigs, 100 to 300 grams, over structure is another highly effective method. For kahawai, spinning with metal lures, small soft plastics or even flies, streamers, is incredibly fun. They're not particularly fussy when they're on the bite, but shiny, fast-moving lures typically get their attention. Pay attention to the retrieve speed. Sometimes a fast, erratic retrieve is best, other times a slower, more consistent action. All right, my friends, let's break down the conditions that are going to influence our fishing this week. It's crucial to understand the why behind the what when it comes to predicting fish activity. Weather outlook, a true spring mix. Across New Zealand this week, from the 27th of October to the 2nd of November, we're looking at typical spring weather, a bit of everything. The general trend sees temperatures slowly climbing. In the North Island, expect daytime highs to hover around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius in the earlier part of the week, gradually moving towards 16 to 20 degrees Celsius by the weekend. The South Island will be a touch cooler, with 10 to 15 degrees Celsius early on, and around 12 degrees Celsius by the beginning of November. Atmospheric pressure is going to be a bit of a mixed bag. We'll likely see some stable periods, but also a couple of noticeable drops as weather fronts move across the country. Sharp drops in pressure, especially when combined with a change in wind, can often make fish finicky and send them deeper or off the bite. Conversely, a steady, rising barometer usually spells good news for active feeding. Wind is expected to be breezy to windy at times, averaging around 21 kilometers per hour in October and 18 kilometers per hour in November. Stronger winds, particularly from the south or west, can chop up the water, make boat control difficult, and push baitfish around, but they can also create productive chop lines on lakes where fish will ambush prey. We should anticipate moderate rainfall this week, with October generally seeing heavy rainfall. So, be prepared for some wet conditions, but also know that post-rain, rivers can clear up and fish activity can spike as insects are washed into the water. Water temperature. The warming trend continues. This is a critical factor, especially for our cold-blooded friends. Overall, water temperatures in New Zealand's coastal areas are still on the cooler side for swimming, with Auckland around 15.8 to 16 degrees Celsius in October, and Christchurch around 12.6 degrees Celsius. However, the key takeaway is the warming trend. As we move from late October into early November, both freshwater and saltwater are slowly but surely gaining warmth. For freshwater trout, reaching 10 degrees Celsius is often a trigger for increased activity in feeding. Warmer water boosts metabolism, making fish hungrier and more willing to chase prey. In saltwater, this warming pushes baitfish into shallower inshore areas, and our predatory snapper, kingfish, and kahawai follow suit. So, while it's not tropical, every degree counts. Moon phase. From crescent to gibbous. Let's turn our attention to the lunar calendar, which many seasoned anglers swear by. This week starts on Monday, the 27th of October, with a waxing crescent moon, about 29% illuminated. By Wednesday, the 29th of October, we hit the first quarter moon. This phase marks the halfway point between new moon and full moon, and it's often associated with increasing tidal movement, and can be a good period for fishing, especially for saltwater species. As we head into Friday, the 31st of October, and through the weekend, the moon transitions into a waxing gibbous phase. The moon's illumination will continue to grow, bringing stronger tides as we approach the full moon next week. Many anglers believe that the periods around the new moon and full moon, and especially during the quarters, can stimulate fish activity due to the increased tidal pull. This week, with the moon growing and tides strengthening, particularly from Wednesday onwards, could see some really active feeding windows, especially around dawn, dusk, and those peak tidal flows. General fish activity, spring fever. Overall, my friends, this is a fantastic time to be fishing in New Zealand. Spring, particularly October and November, marks the official opening of many river and lake fishing seasons. Fish are coming out of their winter patterns, actively seeking food to replenish their energy stores. Trout, in particular, are often less wary and more forgiving of presentation at this time, having experienced less angling pressure over the colder months. There's an abundance of insect life starting to emerge, which means trout are looking up for dry flies and actively feeding on nymphs subsurface. In the saltwater, the warming inshore waters mean our coastal predators are also becoming more aggressive and moving into more accessible areas. So expect a general increase in activity across the board, but be mindful that spring weather can still throw curveballs, leading to moments of finicky fish behavior. Flexibility and adaptability will be your best friends this week. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, the daily breakdown of the forecast. Remember, these are my best predictions based on the data, but Mother Nature always has the final say. Always be ready to adapt. Monday, October 27th. We kick off the week with a waxing crescent moon and typical early spring conditions. Expect temperatures to be cool in the morning, gradually warming. Wind will be light to moderate. I'm calling this a good day for fishing. The fish are still settling into the new week, but they're active. Focus on nymphing for trout in deeper runs, and snapper might be hitting soft plastics in inshore reefs. Tuesday, October 28th. Conditions remain relatively stable, with temperatures slowly rising. The moon is still a waxing crescent, gaining illumination. Forecast. Good. With steady conditions, fish should be consistently feeding. Trout will respond well to both nymphs and possibly small dries if a hatch appears. Kahawai might be schooling around headlands, so keep an eye out for surface action. Wednesday, October 29th. This is our first quarter moon day. This often signals a shift. We might see a slight dip in atmospheric pressure and an increase in wind, possibly bringing in some light rain showers. Forecast. Medium to good, potentially capricious. The changing pressure might make fish a little hesitant, but the strengthening tides around the quarter moon could also trigger feeding frenzies for saltwater species, especially snapper. For trout, stick to deeper presentations and be persistent. Be ready for a weather shift. Thursday, October 30th. Following any weather system from Wednesday, we might see clearing skies but potentially stronger, cooler winds and a more stable, rising pressure. The moon is now moving into waxing gibbous. Forecast. Good, especially as pressure stabilizes. Trout might be actively feeding after a potential lull. Look for them in sheltered areas if the wind is strong. Kingfish might be active around offshore structure, hitting jigs as the water clears. Friday, October 31st. A beautiful day shaping up for Halloween. Expect warmer temperatures, lighter winds and stable atmospheric pressure. The moon continues its waxing gibbous journey. Forecast. Excellent. This looks like a prime fishing day across the board. Trout will be very active, responding to both nymphs and dry flies. Snapper should be hitting well, and kingfish might be on the prowl. This is the day to be out there, friends. Saturday, November 1st. Kicking off November with more promising weather, continued warmth, lighter winds and a persistent waxing gibbous moon. There's a slight chance of afternoon showers, so be prepared. Forecast. Excellent. Similar to Friday, conditions are prime for an active bite. Trout will be opportunistic feeders. Target those tidal flows for saltwater species. Early mornings and late evenings will be particularly productive. Sunday, November 2nd. The end of our forecast period. We might see increasing cloud cover and potentially stronger winds as another weather system approaches. The moon is still waxing gibbous, continuing to grow. Forecast: good to medium, with potential for a pre-front bite. Fish often feed actively just before a weather change. Try to get out early to take advantage of this. If the wind picks up, focus on more sheltered spots. Be ready for conditions to deteriorate later in the day, but don't let it deter you. Some of my best catches have been just before a storm hits. Well, my incredible fishing comrades, that wraps up our New Zealand fishing forecast from the 27th of October to the 2nd of November 2025. I truly hope this detailed breakdown helps you plan your adventures and puts more fish on the end of your line. Remember, every day on the water is a gift, and even a challenging day can teach us something new. So get out there, enjoy our stunning Kiwi scenery, and make some unforgettable memories. I'm wishing you all tight lines and screaming reels. May you have nothing but nipper on your hooks. Don't forget to hit that like button if you found this forecast useful. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on our weekly updates. Also, I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. What are your plans for fishing this week? What did you catch last weekend? And what lures or baits were working for you? Share your stories and tips with the community. Let's learn and grow together. Tight lines, everyone, and I'll catch you next time.